Good morning and welcome to Legally Speaking with attorney Antoinette Osbourne. This program is for information purposes only. If you need legal advice, you can contact me, Antoinette Osbourne, at 718-502-9137. That's 718-502-9137. Just bear with me a second because I need to post this link on Facebook. Yeah, 1 second. All right. All right, sorry about that. All right, so good morning, everyone. I hope you've had a good weekend and a past wonderful Memorial holiday. All right, so this morning I wanted to focus on preparing for your interview. Now, one of the difficulties that I find that happens a lot to people is their memory when it comes to their criminal history. And I think it is such an issue where for things that you could have avoided, if you had been prepared, your case does not get delayed. That's one. To the extent of the investigation is not so strenuous. For example, if you have been arrested, and for some people, they have been arrested so many times that truly they cannot recall the dates of their arrest, what they were arrested for, and the outcome of the case. And what I do for people because some people will just be arrested in the county where they live, because that's where, of course, they perform most of their transactions. And I usually, for my clients, especially when they have a memory problem, especially where they're very inconsistent in their statement as to how many times they were arrested, date of arrest, where they were arrested. For some of them, I ask them to go and do a rap sheet. If it is just specifically for a certain town, I will send them to that court's office. Now, one of the I don't even know how to describe it, but one of the things where they go to the clerk, they provide their information, and it's difficult where you have lied to the police, you've given a wrong name. So when you actually go to the clerk's office, and I've had this happen to one of my clients, he gave the wrong name, and I don't know what benefit people think that giving the wrong name to the police, that it will in fact assist them with their record. Because what you have to remember is everyone gets fingerprinted. Your fingerprints really does not lie on you. Where your mouth will assist you with a lie, your fingerprint does not lie. And I'll tell you, one of my clients, and this is where we're so dependent on his getting the correct disposition. He was applying for his citizenship. Wife was in removal proceedings. He remembered one arrest. And when he went there, and I said, because he wasn't too sure as to what happened, of course, you send in and you tell them, get every disposition under your name. All right. So he goes ahead and he gets the disposition. So now, for the one arrest he told me about, he came back with 2 dispositions. Having come back with 2 dispositions, of course, anyone who has been in an immigration interview, you are going to be asked, how many times have you been arrested? And he goes ahead and he says twice, because that's the paperwork he has in front of him. The memory is not so great. He went to the court and he requested his disposition. So then we get a requisition later on, because remember, your fingerprints, I don't care what information you're telling the police, your fingerprints don't lie. And here comes a requisition asking for an arrest on a certain date. So then now he remembers that, yes, it wasn't 1 time, it wasn't 2, it was actually 3 times. But the 3rd time, he actually gave a false name. And there's no real benefit to you by providing fake names, because your fingerprints do not lie. And what happens is you can forget a lie, but you really never forget the truth. So now it comes clear to him that, oh, when I was arrested this time, I gave a fake name. That it does not serve you any purpose, especially when you have an immigration application to make. You're not going to defeat the system. I think back in the day, one of the reasons why a lot of people were getting away with going into immigration, providing fake information, was because the FBI had not uploaded all of the results, right? And under the Trump administration, when the FBI uploaded the results, it now came to immigration attention that you had people who had committed certain criminal history, who had in fact been deported, because of course they reapplied with a different name. The FBI results were not updated. So under the Trump administration, they had created Operation Janus. In fact, I'm not even sure what's the extent of it. But what that operation did, because when it now comes to their attention that people were able to benefit and receive immigration benefits because they had in fact lied and the fingerprints were not updated, that's how they got away with it. So this operation was set up specifically to go into people's immigration history to determine whether or not there were in fact people accorded benefit when they should not have benefited from any immigration approvals, right? And of course they found people. I think one of the first cases that came was this gentleman from India, and he didn't contest the denaturalization. So however, you providing a wrong name when you get arrested is absolutely no, it's not going to benefit you. And the reason being is the fingerprints do not lie. Your fingerprints are going to determine your true identity. So by providing a fake identity, this does not benefit you, where your fingerprint is the real indicator of who you are. So just tuning in, welcome everyone. You're listening to Legally Speaking with attorney Antoinette Osbourne. Please don't forget to like the live, and please don't forget to share the live. So for my client, I know with when they did the requisition and he actually went to immigration, it was and he had to go for this record. It was determined by him that, yeah, the reason he never really remembered this was because he had given a wrong name, right? So when especially people are dependent on you for that benefit, you providing a fake name where you can't remember things, I'll tell you, people have like arrests from 20 years ago and they really don't recall what happened. But providing a fake name does not assist you because it is your fingerprints that determines your true identity. So I would not recommend anyone like providing a fake name. It does not benefit you, right? All right. Now bear with me 1 second. All right. Good morning, Michelle, Madge, Nikki, Sharon, and Pauline. All right. So, what's the damage to you now when you've been arrested and you do not walk into your interview with your criminal disposition? So now you get a requisition. But when you get the requisition, when you have had an arrest, it is not just for the disposition. They are requesting your any sort of plea agreements, sentencing, any complaints, any indictments, any transcripts where you could have just walked in with the disposition. But when you failed to provide the disposition, now after the interview, you're getting this requisition. And it's a very detailed requisition. And some of these things can be damaging to you, especially where you have admitted to the elements of the crime. So be prepared for your interviews, especially if you have been arrested. Make sure that you are in full remembrance of what were the circumstances that surrounded your arrest. And you have to be so very careful in these interviews because even if you were not convicted, if you go ahead and admit to the elements of the crime, for immigration, that is an arrest. So not because you have a disposition that says, you know, dismissed or not guilty, you have to be very careful as to what you in fact state in your interviews. Because if you go ahead and you admit to the elements of that crime, that's a conviction. And where that conviction makes you inadmissible, you have problems, right? Just a reminder for those of you, your family members, they are in fact coming up. And when they do arrive in the country, it is their intent to stay and adjust status. I want you to remember the 90-day rule, where within the first 90 days, if you in fact move in a direction that is inconsistent with the visa that you came on, when you're in fact doing your adjustment interviews, you can get hit with a misrepresentation charging that you knew you were coming to the United States to engage, whether it is to adjust or whether it was you came on your tourist visa and as you have arrived, you are in fact applying to school, you're submitting your application to convert from a visitor's visa to a student visa, things like that. Unfortunately, it creates a preconceived intent where they can hold misrepresentation. and you in fact need a waiver. So I am just going to encourage you, when your family members in fact come and they are seeking to perform certain applications with immigration, you must know the rules. You do not want to place an application which is going to, in fact, put you in jeopardy. So be very careful. I find people are not seeking out the proper guidance. And as such, they are putting their applications in jeopardy. And it does not make any sense to put in an application that is, in fact, going to get denied. I have had people who have come to the office with applications where I know it is, in fact, a clear cut path for them to get denied and end up in removal proceedings. For those applications, I'm not going to put it in. I'm not going to be that girl. So I will simply tell you, no, I can't help you. I'm not put it in. And you can go and you can get a second opinion, but my office is not doing it. It doesn't make sense that you put in an application and people eye water reach you. Nope, it doesn't make sense. All right. So Sharon has says, everyone, please click the live. Yes, please click the live. Please share the live, because we want to get our community informed, and we like to educate and empower them, right? I think one of the things that I find is anyone who is going to be putting in an application based on marriage. Now, often, especially for people who are my rollover radio listeners, you would hear me specifically tell you to date. Date, ask questions. Now, I find, especially for the men, they find it very intrusive that you're bombarding them with so many questions. So, my recommendation would be not to ask very intrusive questions on the first date. But if you're speaking to someone and ultimately you're a marriage minded person and you are going to be putting in an application to immigration, I personally think there are certain things that you are required to know. I think you should ask the person you're dating, how many times have you been married, right? And one of the red flags are people who are, quote unquote, using the system to provide a lot of people with immigration benefits, right? And where you're going to an interview and your spouse has filed for numerous people, that person looks like he's in the business of providing a green card. And this is where it is so important that you know the history of your spouse, because unfortunately, that rolls over into your application to determine whether or not he's in fact marrying you to evade immigration laws, and whether possibly monies have been exchanged. So you have to ask that person their immigration history, right? Where have you filed for anyone before? It's very important, because now this may cast shade on your application, right? In addition, not just have you filed, but have they benefited, or how did the case end, very important. Yeah. It does reflect on your application. I had a client from Brazil. He married, I think, 4 times. And the first time, the first wife filed for him. And then the other 3 times he filed. But after a while, the interviews got very intense. Yeah. So you need to date and question people. I find people don't ask questions. I think that if it is that you are in fact speaking to someone and they become very, I would say, secretive in sharing what are, I deem, very basic and very important information when you're trying to get to know someone, or it is that you are in fact looking to build, right? May increase the lighting. All right, so you're trying to build, and in that case you do have to ask questions. Yeah. But some people become just ridiculously offended, and you need to taking immigration out of it. If you are speaking to someone and you're looking to build a life, right? You are looking ultimately to marriage, because I think we're all social beings. I don't think we were meant to be alone. However, you have to be careful as to who it is that you have, in fact, chosen to spend the rest of your life with. You have to ask questions. And when people are like super offended with regards to the question you're asking, for me, I personally, I don't think it makes sense. When you see someone is being secretive, I have had clients where Flavia is here. Good morning, and good morning, Amarildo and Sandy. I have had clients where, and it's just amazing to me that they're in marriages and they have absolutely no idea what's going on because their spouse is so secretive. And I don't know if people have forgotten the concept that when you are married, it's like you have become one. But I find people are so secretive. They don't want to tell you where they're banking. They don't want to reveal their assets. Yeah. But it's so strange that your mate will know more about your husband than you, the wife. And I don't think you should be in these marriages not having any idea what's going on. I have seen where people's spouses die, and especially where the husband took care of everything. And when he's deceased, you have these kids that life goes on. You still have to pay your mortgage. You still have to pay for the kids' activities. They have no idea what assets their spouse had. And you're in the home and everything is freaking electronic because they don't want mail coming to them. And when you put everything electronic, this kind of prevents your spouse from knowing what's going on. You've had spouses that their mail will go to a relative's house. Let us not forget the ever protective mother in law, where the male is going to his mother, the relationship between men and their mom. It is, anytime you book a man in life and he does not have a good relationship with his mom, I don't think you should pursue that relationship. Yeah, because I will tell you this. You will end up in a marriage, you're going to suffer. Uh I call it PTSD. That may not be the medical terminology, but I'm not a doctor. So I'll call it what I want. You are going to be in a struggle, right? And you are going to be in the position of a creator because you're creating, you're building. You know, they have build a bear, you're going to be building a man. Yeah. But I just think that people, especially when you have an application to make, you should know your spouse's, their criminal history, their marital history, their immigration history. It's so important. You have to know their work history. You have to know their family history. Yeah. The hardest thing for me is when I am interviewing my clients and then they go, "Oh, I have like 12 brothers and sisters." What? No, how are you supposed to remember all of that? That's a lot. Yeah. But you really have to know the family history. It is so important. I think it's very strange if an application is going to be made and you don't know the name of their mom, their father, you know. And I do understand the concept that some people are in fact estranged, right? And I do not cast judgment on anyone who is estranged from a family member. I have family members I am estranged from myself, so I do not cast judgment on anyone, but at least you should know a name. It is so important because probably in life, you're going to hear them say that they don't speak to that sibling. Yeah. Or some people don't even speak to their mom. I personally, I don't understand the concept. My parents are village people, and they're not city people, and it's different in the country. This hardcore, sometimes I really believe it's more in the city, this hardcore resentment that is built against parents, maybe both, just amazes me. And one of the funny things is, for example, in Jamaica, West Indies, we have the Maintenance Act. And there are two people that you have a legal obligation to maintain. You have a legal obligation to maintain your parent and your child. And child in New York means someone under the age of 21. New York, you don't have the obligation to maintain your parent. But in the islands, you do. And where that parent has forsaken you and treated you badly, that legal obligation still holds. And people will become angry, right? But it is, in fact, questionable. You have parents here where their children are, in fact, US citizens, but that child will never file for them. And the reason being is that anger, that resentment that they have carried in the years, it continues in their adult life, right? Certain people I can understand. I remember uh, I was there on social media. There was a young lady who got up in church and she said, from she was 8 years old, she was being molested by her stepfather. But one of the most wickedest thing was when she turned to her mother and she said, "You knew, I told you, and you did nothing." Yeah. And the mother turns to her and said she's lying. And I think as parents, you have to listen to your children. An 8-year-old is not going to just make up something like that someone has touched them. And as a parent, you cannot fail your children. You have a legal obligation to them. And this is why in family court, you will end up in a neglect proceeding. Yeah? And for people like that, if that young lady was ever in the position where she could have blessed her mother, I know personally, if she had decided she was not going to file for her, no one could blame her. Yeah. I just think that there are certain things in life that there's no forgiveness for. Or people say you forgive and you forget. Like somebody like me, that's a transgression that I personally, for most days, I am so in the Old Testament, because to just let wickedness slide by, it's unreal. Yeah. But then you have to get to the New Testament and you have to depend on God to take care of it for you. Yeah. But I'll tell you, it's tough. All right. So, morning, Tracy. All right. So having your applications in a ready manner is so important. And what I find now, generally requisitions, when they would come, they would have a nice 87 days. Yeah. Most of these requisitions now are coming with 30 days. Oftentimes you cannot get all your documentation within that 30-day mark. It's tough, right? And I'll never forget, I have a client where they went and they did a home visit. And having done a home visit, all hell broke loose, right? They weren't home, but they went to the neighbor. And this is where, back in the islands, we would live so good with our neighbors. I knew, I would say 90% of the people who lived on my avenue growing up in Portmore. This is a place you don't really know your neighbors like that. Yeah. But even though you'd probably do not speak to them, you'd be surprised when it comes to watchy winsome, how much information your neighbor knows about you. Because I remember when I had moved to a house where I was living before, and the neighbor came over, and this man came over, and this man, first time he came over, he introduced himself. And that was when I was married at that time. So my ex-husband and I were just moving into the house. And the neighbor came over, and the neighbor was able, and this was so scary, the neighbor was able to tell us everybody's business in the immediate surrounding. And I said to myself, well, this is scary as hell. So I said, shoot, we're gonna be next. Yeah. But, and I personally, because when me see that, nothing more than a good morning and a good evening. Yeah? Come in, I have time. I leave early and I come back home late. So me not have time to sit down and I watch people like that. Anyway, so for my clients, there was an investigation. Yeah. And that wonderful neighbor, no, sir. That wonderful neighbor said she never lived there. Yeah. What? Yeah. And of course, this turned everything into a disaster. So then it's a matter of proving, right? To dispute what the neighbor says. And one of the hardest thing was that the child's mother even lived there. And when I tell you about uphill battle, it was an uphill battle. And remember, when she came to me, she was in deportation. So you have your application in and you get this sort of requisition and she in removal proceedings on top of that backside. Yeah. So here comes the fight now. Yeah. And people have unique living situations. Because the child mother is not going to move. It's her house. It's her parents' house. So if anything, them have to leave. But then them not have the money to leave. But the child mother have her man. So it is in fact a unique situation, but it is the situation. So I was wondering, like, why is it they sent a requisition and then a response was done, and then we get this notice of intent to deny. Whew. When you see the allegations, it's like, what in tarnation? And this is like the second case I've had like this. Thank God, I mean, it's been approved, but it is a work and it is a disaster. And one of the things I'm going to encourage everyone to do whenever you have an application with immigration, create an online account. It is so important. I have had cases where it is alleged, because I never received the correspondence, and neither did my client. But it is alleged that a letter was mailed out. We never received it. And that one non-receipt spiraled into a disaster, which ultimately the case got approved. But I encourage my clients to get that letter. And anyone who is doing an application, you get that letter that says, here is your access code. Anyone who has an application, create that account, because mail will be alleged to have gone out and you probably would not have received it, right? But when you have that online account, you in fact get notification. Yeah. So where nothing comes in the mail. And anyone who does, when you live anywhere, I encourage people sign up for the post office. Also has a wonderful system. But why was suspicious with regard to that mail for my client? And it took, after that disastrous mail experience, it took about, I think, nearly a year and a half to go back into all of that. And this is where your congressman is so important, to go back into all of that and to finally get the case approved. Yeah. And the officer had called me on that case. And I'm like, we never received that mail. And it was just like a complete disaster. And however, they had made a mistake. And thank God that case was approved. But these are the things that can occur. We're not in a perfect world. Let's get real. We are not. And caller, you are on the air, love.
Hello, or good morning.
Good morning, darling.
Oh, yes. I'm actually crying help, help, help. I recently returned from Jamaica, West Indies,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a 50-year-old grand niece there
Mm-hmm.
who the father had actually filed for her
Okay.
almost 2 years now. And the no approval have been made so far. But what happened is that the only word I can use to describe the situation is that this girl is a disaster. What happened is that she's uncontrollable. And um, besides the fact that she's uncontrollable, meaning that she's sleeping out, she's in high school, she sleeps out, and she's all over the place, coming in back the next morning and so on and so forth. And the mother and the father, the father was in the States, the mother, she doesn't have custody of her, the grandmother had custody. And what happened is that the mother kind of supervised her as well from her home. But she got so out of control that the mother and the father had actually literally abandoned her. They supported her financially, but no conversation with her. And so she's in the hands of scammers. I am saying this is a fact because I had to find a way to get her before the court, the juvenile court, before I returned to the States recently. And when they got into her phone and the police and children's service put pressure on her, she had an iPhone, so they couldn't get in, so they had to put a lot of pressure on her in order to get her to open the phone and so on and so forth. Then it was confirmed that she is actually in pornography based on the pictures that's on her phone. She's into drugs, smoking marijuana, going to parties, drinking Hennessy, stuff like that. So the court had actually, they were going to send her to a place of safety, but children's service, they didn't have any space. I think that was the reason. So they had curfewed her, meaning that she's supposed to return home at 4 o'clock in the evening, and she's supposed to report to the police station every day at a certain time. But the thing is, where she is, there is absolutely no supervision. There's like 6 people in the room, one room with 6 people in there, and so on and so forth. So I'm crying out because I would like to get her here because I'm afraid, especially based on the situation that that had been exposed now that she is actually dating a scammer. I would love to get her here under this because her life I think is going to be in danger at this point. I've asked the police not to go at them, just to let us try to protect her. But I don't know what they will do, and I don't want this little girl to be, to vanish. Is there anything that could be done at this point? Her case is like 2 years with immigration now, and she's only 15 years old.
What is the father's status?
The father is a citizen. He got his, no, he's not. I'm lying. He can apply for his citizenship now, which I asked him to. He's eligible to apply for his citizenship.
Okay, so because the dad is a green card holder, the approximate wait time for that visa number to become available is 2 years, right? So even though, when you are a green card holder, the relative petition does take some time to get approved. She's not an immediate relative. She is not a priority. So once he applies and he gets his citizenship, then what he should do is that he should update his filing with for her to let immigration know, because it's one family, two different brothers, two different minds. So he's going to have to alert them as to his change of status. I am a bit concerned, however, this child is 15 years old. And
And and to make matters worse, Miss Osbourne, she's gonna be 16 in 2 years. I'm sorry, in 2 weeks. And Jamaica gave them the ability to give consent at 16.
yeah,
And if she's 15 and this is what is happening, then in 2 weeks she's going to be 16. The court is not going to, the juvenile court is not going to have any jurisdiction over her.
all right.
So, I'm very, very frustrated.
But my concern is this girl is in a position where it is a terrible cry for help. And if this is not fixed from Jamaica, when she gets here, it is going to be a disaster for the father. And I find often when you take up these unruly children, you will get in the position where, here they are a child and you have custodial authority until you are 18 in New York. And he can get hit with some serious neglect proceedings if because he's looking to bring her here. And unfortunately, I see this child coming here. If nothing is done to fix this mindset prior to arriving in the United States, it is going to be a complete disaster for him. In fact, the way how this child operates, I see him trying to exercise parental control, and I see him getting arrested. I see a complete disaster when this little girl comes here. And I think that mental health in Jamaica now has been put also to the forefront since COVID. I think someone should be speaking to this child to put her in therapy,
Yes,
because if you do,
she's getting counseling and she's going back to court in a few days.
yeah, but I don't think it's
And
helping. Whatever she's doing is not helping because there is no change. And probably she needs to see someone else. Not every counselor is the right fit for every patient. And they may have to change, because I see nothing but disaster happening with this child as soon as she touches the soil. Yeah? And
yes, it's a disaster right there
it
in
is.
Jamaica where she is
It
as well.
is.
My only concern based on the situation, the difference between being here and being in Jamaica, is that she's been in the hands of these cameras and first the security purpose. That is part of the reason why I was thinking of trying to get her away.
All right. What you have to understand is sometimes it works changing the environment, changing the location, but sometimes it does not. And in terms of the criminal underworld, it is extensive here, far more than it is in Jamaica. The only good thing is there are more, I think, resources here to assist someone, whether or not this child will take advantage of it, because she sounds unruly. And when you have children are engaged at that young age with some sort of sexual activity, it often speaks to molestation. Yeah, you don't see children just getting up and acting sexually open like that. This is often so as a result of some form of molestation that happened with that child, and you have to really investigate who is around that child. Yeah, and I can guarantee you that child, when you see them so promiscuous sexually, it is because often they have been molested. But what the father can do,
so. I suspected
absolutely,
that, to tell you the truth.
absolutely. When I see children acting like that, I become very suspicious and alert as to who is in their immediate circle. And my fear for her is that when she comes here, and especially as a Black person in this country, being on the wrong side of the law is not the best place for Black people in the United States. And you have to be so careful when she gets here, because it may turn out to be a complete disaster. And whatever that the father is trying to do whilst they are in Jamaica to try to get this child to turn around their life, I think he should continue doing it. It seems like it's an uphill battle with her, but they should continue doing it, and he should pursue his citizenship. Having pursued it, and once it's received, he updates the application for her, and it will proceed quicker for her. Yeah, but right now she's a green card holder. He is a green card holder filing for a minor child. She's not an immediate relative, so the priority is different. The processing times are different, and that's not really a basis to speed it up. All right.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms.
You're very
Osbourne. I
welcome.
appreciate you.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. All right. Bye. I think and it's truly sad what is happening with our children. Yeah. I think with the advance, especially of some certain movements, sex is now at the forefront of in educating our children. And I was at the bank when I was in Jamaica, and there was this lady who was discussing that she went to school to pick up the child was 8, her 8-year-old daughter. And in waiting for her daughter, she is, of course, amongst the other children. But one of the most dangerous things was, and I want you to bear in mind, these are 8-year-old children. And she said she nearly fainted, because there was a baby. To me, that's a baby. You're 8. You're a child. Yeah? And this is a girl is talking about what sexual position she do to her man. This is an 8-year-old child. And she said she wanted to drop down. She couldn't believe it. But I think we are now in an age, especially with social media, you have to monitor your kids. You have to be careful who you bring your children around. Yeah. I don't think as a parent you should have your children sitting in people's laps. And I remember listening to the interview of a molester, and he says it's so easy to get access to children. Yeah? You know? He's like, I'm holding their daughters in my lap and I'm fondling them. You have to be vigilant. Yeah? You have a legal obligation to your children. And you have to be very careful who you bring around your children. Look at the disaster. The child is 15. And this is happening for some time now, that this child is unruly. If you are a parent and you see your child not acting normally as how they would act, either they're going to become very withdrawn, because remember that abuser is threatening them. You know, if you tell your parents, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill your parent, you have to raise your kids and let them know that you're crazy. Yeah? And nobody can tell you that they are going to harm me, because your mother, or as your father, I'm one step away from Bellevue. Anybody touch you, you have to let your kids know. And I think it's sad that we're in such an age in order to protect our children, but you have to. You have to start speaking to them about sexual contact, because even daycare workers are molesting your children. And if you do not educate, and you have to create an environment for your children that they are, in fact, so comfortable in coming to you, they're not going to get in trouble. You know, they have to be able to speak to you freely. Because a child like that, if this is not corrected, guess what? This young lady is going to be on the path to a life of crime. Yeah? You you just have to be so vigilant with your kids. Yeah, I know for me growing up, my father didn't play that. We weren't allowed really to sleep over at our friends until we reach a certain age. First of all, you have to come back in your yard by a certain time. Yeah. And this is the advantage I'm telling you. Some of you women do not run the men from out of your homes. You can't do this by yourself. It makes no sense. It is a struggle, and it is a substantial benefit. Yeah. For a child to grow up in a two-parent household. This, oh, I'm so independent. Nonsense. It's two of you that created a child. And when I'm going to encourage a lot of you, do not leave your homes. Yeah. Your children are the ones who really feel the brunt of it. Yeah. You have a lot of kids being molested by step parents. It's hard where it's the actual biological parent that is doing this. But when you see your kids on a path, right? And back in the day, we had the grandparents, the parent that is taking out that strap. For me personally, I completely believe in corporal punishment. I do not believe, you know, that you're going to just spare the rod and everything is going to be so hunky dory. Yeah. And if as parents you do not reel in this behavior, especially some of your children are here as green card holders, thinking they are citizens, you need to explain to them their situation. They can't go with their friends to go and rob a bank. A lot of people do not understand the serious consequences of the position that they're in. They are green card holders. Back in the day, you had these kids, they leave high school, they want a quick money. They're selling drugs. Yeah. This was, some people don't understand. You should eat by the sweat of your brow. And some people in the school districts and selling these things. And you have kids in school selling, dealing. Yeah. This is the society that we have today. And if you as a parent do not reel it in, whatever money you're saving now in not being that disciplinarian, you want to be your children's friend, yeah, you're going to save that money. But I want you to save it because you're putting it aside for legal fees. And I think New York doesn't have bail now. So you're putting it aside really for legal fees. And I think we're in a time where you have to engage in aggressive parenting, right? Because especially as Black people, slavery may have been abolished, but the prison system is a new plantation. And I don't understand how people are not seeing this. It is the one of the best things for corporations because you can get your products done at a very low cost, so you are able to maintain these significant profits. It's a new plantation, and you have to understand and let your children know that they're free. There is no need to end up back on a plantation because that's the prison system now. Yeah, it's one of the easiest ways to get cheap labor because Slavery is no more, right? So, but just tuning in, I want to encourage you as parents, as future parents, you have to be aggressive in your parenting. I find the sexual liberation that is happening now, right? I think it is inappropriate to be treating very and you're teaching very young children about certain things. Yeah. I I know that's why some of the people I know, they're taking their kids out of public school because what you're exposing these children to. Yeah. This should not be on the forefront. And this is why certain countries will always be ahead of this country because they're focusing on learning and not sexual liberation. These are children. Yeah. And remember this, your home should be the first educational institution that your child goes. You should be that child's first teacher. And I know for one of my girlfriends, uh, her children will come home, and one of the daughter will say, "Well, we learned this at school today, but this is what they taught us in church." And you always you have to let them know. And I don't think because we have physically relocated, don't let your culture slide so much that certain things you become so accepting of. And I'll tell you this, for me personally, I was going into, I think it's Brooklyn, civil court. I was going into the bathroom and something said, look. And I saw that it was a unisex bathroom. I'm sorry. One of the scariest things for one of my friends was she went into the female bathroom. Because I know for me, when I saw that in Brooklyn that it's shared, I went out of there so quickly and looked for the sign that said women only. Yeah. I know for one of my friends, she was in Manhattan. She was just coming from Supreme Court. And she actually, one second. She actually went into the bathroom, and whilst she was in the bathroom, there was a man who came in like a fluffy princess skirt, heavily bearded, um, a female top, and he was so brash. But then the bathroom allowed this. And he was so brash in the bathroom, the little girls were getting scared. But we are now in an age, it's very liberal, and this is in fact permissible, right? What's going on with my hair here? But this this is in fact permissible. And as parents, you just try to be that institution. Your home should be the first place of learning. You have to protect your kids because I really do not see how our kids are being protected. This it is a new age. Yeah. Anyway, it's after 10. I thank you for joining us this Sunday. Yeah. Good morning, Derek. And yeah, Amarillo is saying preach. Yeah. These are true liberal times. I'm not a liberal person. I'm extremely conservative. And when I see things like this, and you know what's sad? When the kids act up, you know what people say? You as the parent get blamed. Nobody sees that you are trying. Nobody, because at the end of the day, this should never happen. So you're gonna get blamed. Yeah. So it's sad, but unfortunately, that is the reality as to what is happening now with your kids, and you have to protect them. It breaks my heart where I couldn't even imagine. At 15, I was studying for CXCs. I could not even imagine me could have so bright with my father, real cray. So me I sleep out. And me not come on. First of all, my father door locked at a certain time. Yeah? And everybody know my father used to drive, like, I don't remember who remembers, like a Ford Escort. And when you hear that turn on the road, it is so loud. We each knew, like, everybody hung out. And oftentimes everybody was over at my house because we're hanging out. Yeah. Because my mother was like good like that. And she cooked for Parson and his wife. So everybody always hang out, how we eating, we're laughing. But when we start here with parents care a come, we know say we have to quick. Yeah. And you run go home. You know, Jamaicans, we good at the hurdles. So we are jump fence, cause we are go home, right? We're in serious times. And I want you to treat it seriously. Anyway, it is in fact 10 o'clock. I wish everyone a happy Sunday. Spend some time with your children and start having open conversations with them. It's better you start the conversation than a complete stranger. Yeah? All right. Take care. I'll see you next Sunday.